Wow. Let's put this back in there. Well, I can answer the question. Anytime you guys got a question, I will answer it right here before we move on. Let's quickly turn off my display capture. And Wednesday, you're going to need to be a little quiet. Wednesday. Okay, so on this progression map here, we don't have an arrow going into Oregon itself. Instead, it's going right down the coast. Take a look at this. Okay, now you see this? See which way the arrow is pointing and see the arrow over to the east. What we found over and over again... Here, hold on one second, guys. Come on. Come on. Get up in my lap or chill out. That we see that pressure goes down the coast and it catches here off the coast with a fracture zone. Okay? And the fracture zone is two parts. One, it's east and west. You see the Gorda Escarpment here. Okay, it goes east and west. It's the long fracture zone that goes right into Northern California. Then there's more of a lightning bolt shape or a zigzag S or Z shape that's here off the coast. That's a series of fracture zones that is cumulatively called the Juan de Fuca. But it's made up of the cleft segment. It's made up of several different segments of fractures. And what actually happens here is that pressure comes over from the West Pacific, and there's two ways it can come. One is along the plate boundary to the north, up along Alaska, and then going down the coast of Canada, coming in from the northwest, and another way is directly in from east or from west to east, going into Northern California. Now what I found is that most of the time pressure is coming directly across. And that when it goes across Alaska, it goes up into Alaska and then builds up here on the mainland of Alaska, then going back down out to the east, southeast. So, when we take a look at it, again, you can see which way the arrows go. The reason we don't have one pointing into Oregon is because the pressure doesn't seem, literally, it doesn't seem to go into Oregon at all. It goes down the coast and hits these fracture zones. Now, I'm going to open up a copy of Google Earth here so that you guys can see my main screen. And I'm going to quickly show you something off the coast. This is going to make a lot of sense. You'll understand in Oregon why you don't get hit much, and when it does strike, it usually strikes out to sea, not on land. Okay, so here's our Z-shaped fracture zone, the Juan de Fuca, and everywhere where there's a red triangle is a different Smithsonian marked volcano. And then we have our USGS place marks from the other volcanoes marking all the way up and down the interior of the mountain range on the coast. Okay, guys, hold on one second. Hold on. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, sorry I had to take care of the cat. She's not being conducive to the whole package opening thing here right now. It might be a little too much action for her. So, anyways, when we take a look at this, the fracture zone, it's hit by pressure coming in from the west-northwest. That's what's caused this fracture zone to form in this shape. Again, it's almost like two different layers of fracturing has occurred, connected in between by a northwest to southeast fracture. So, do you notice that there are no connecting fracture zones going onto shore or onto land? Like down here in California, you have an east and west that goes onto land that allows for the pressure to carry on into California. But up to the north, it's not the same. It's actually quite different. So, the pressure seems to hit out here, hit the fracture zones here, and then whatever leftover pressure transfers over and hits your volcanoes. However, because the volcanoes are not prone to erupt, most of them are ancient, it seems that there's a splitting factor that goes on here, like a wall like in South America, and it tries to seek out the weakest point, which is just to the south. So, Oregon remains high and dry for the most part, even though it's littered with volcanoes, because of the lack of a plate boundary or any kind of fracture zone going into Oregon itself. As we go further to the north, you'll see we actually have a spot where just to the north of Vancouver, one of these fracture zones comes ashore. So, again, right up here near Alaska, going down north of Vancouver, fracture zone, or the plate boundary and the fracture zone comes over to the east. And we have greater volcanoes. So, there's a lot of talk recently about Washington and Oregon and a megaquake and all that stuff. The only time that I would see the potential for a megaquake to be coming into Oregon or Washington would be when there's other extremely large activity happening around the Pacific and elsewhere to the north. So if you're seeing like Japan and Kamchatka and Alaska being hit, then you might want to start looking for a larger earthquake over here in the Pacific Northwest. But as it stands right now, the threat for a megaquake to occur in this location is relatively slim. I'm not going to say it's 100% not going to happen, but it's relatively slim because it seems most of the pressure at this point is coming across this lateral fracture zone and hitting in California. That's why the 6.5 just hit in California. That's why the 5.1, 5.2 just hit here at Clear Lake and Geysers. That's 2 large earthquakes in the last several days. So, hope that answers the question, okay? Hope that answers the question. I like getting questions asked, and I certainly like taking the time to explain them, okay?